Crab people, crab people, crab people, crab people. House of the Dragon is our long-awaited return to A Song of Ice and Fire since the tragic ending of Game of Thrones at HBO. And there was a lot of discourse going on around this show leading up to its release, and I'm happy to say I'm quite pleasantly surprised. Before we get into the full review though, I'd like to quickly say that the poll to see which manga series gets the Berserk treatment here on the channel next is live right now. Over 5,000 people have voted, and it's still surprisingly close. So if you'd like to vote on which series gets the next deep dive summary, just go ahead and check out the pinned comment and you'll be taken right to it. Now, let's talk House of the Dragon. As I said, we're kind of in a new age for fantasy on television. We've been getting high quality adaptations for over a decade now, but the conversation leading up to their release has just become this insane cesspool that I, as a critic, have to totally block out of my mind and judge it on the show's base merits. And I have criticisms, don't get me wrong, but I can't see how anyone can see House of the Dragon as anything but a success at this point. It has one of the largest uphill battles I've ever seen a show upon its release coming out to, following up one of the biggest disappointments in IP history that caused one of the most valuable IPs ever to tank in value, and it seems like the fans at least are showing up once again, having HBO's largest premiere ever. And it's funny, my first note actually was a criticism, because early on in episode 1, there were some wonky VFX, but I ended up having the thought, who cares when everything else around this looks so damn good? There were just a couple moments where I was like, that dragon doesn't look right, but it all came into place so well that my brain stopped nitpicking and just became very invested on the story that was being presented. Additionally, one of my early criticisms was some of the characterization just seemed really blunt, and I think House of the Dragon actually was doing that fairly intentionally. They just wanted to set up the characters and be like, here are who the players are, now let's get moving. And that's why I think episode 2 I found to be quite a bit better than 1, while still liking episode 1. It just did a lot of legwork that episode 2 then sprangboard off from. And despite some of that early dialogue that was clearly meant to be like, here's who the character is, I feel like the dialogue as a whole has been quite engaging and even had some of those trademark A Song of Ice and Fire lines that make you go like, ooh, that was spicy. And the direction as well really aided in the character development. There were so many small choices in either the acting bringing the characters to life or in the direction for both episodes that just felt like those oh so small details that maybe you don't even really process on your first viewing, but on your second and third you definitely do. And your brain, even on the first time, kind of like takes little notes and puts that away. Like Matt Smith's lips were wet when he was giving this one speech to his men that just made me think of like a feral dog, and I was like, ooh, that's a really good small thing. And speaking of just performance as a whole, yes, Matt Smith just dripping with charisma, and I was really afraid I was only gonna be able to see him as a certain doctor without a PhD, but that hasn't been a problem for even 1 second. This guy's range as an actor is good enough that he can have that iconic character under his belt and then come in with this extremely different portrayal, and it's just as believable. But of course, when you talk about Millie Alcock, I think that's her name, yes, she brings an equal amount of charisma, and while I did think there were a couple acting performances that weren't quite up to the par that was being brought forth, she certainly was not one of them and absolutely popped off the screen for me, which she did have to win me over. The first couple scenes I was kind of iffy, but by the end of episode 2 I was like, I'm buying into the character arc they're setting up for you, and you're carrying it. Love it. And Lord Carlos Valer, dyslexia is a motherfucker with these names. But I so enjoy how understandable his transition and shift of loyalty through these first 2 episodes has happened. It's only 2 episodes, yet it's a very believable, like, continual manipulation and unfolding here, where I was like, yep, A to B to C. Totally get why he went there. And that speaks to quality of character writing, which is really getting me excited for the rest of the season. Of course, there's that big looming shadow this show is having to sprint away from its past, or from its future. You know what I mean? Game of Thrones Season 8. And there's this voice in my head that's like, don't get hyped again. But there's another voice that's like, but those pieces of shit aren't in charge anymore, so you're fine, get hyped. And with how high effort everything is here and how it seems just as quality as some of the best seasons of Game of Thrones are in its production alone, I really am just getting invested faster than I thought I could. In fact, I might regret saying this, I'm getting more invested in this show than I was early Game of Thrones. Granted, I was a lot younger then and not paying as close attention, but yeah, this show hooked me like that. The overall ambiance of the show maybe is the only angle I'm feeling even early Game of Thrones succeeded in. Early Game of Thrones was so bleak, so dry, and accomplished pulling you into that feeling so successfully. And I am pulled into this show, but maybe because it's such a lavish setting, I'm not quite as into it. That being said though, the music has been a total success scene after scene. It is absolutely very much so what we're used to as a Song of Ice and Fire fans in live action adaptation, while feeling a bit more pulled back and reflective of this time that is before what we know is to come. And the sound design has complemented that fantastically. The dragons feel so weighty and alien in a way. I heard that Predator click for that one dragon coming in. I only have one negative note for the sound design here, and it's from one scene where there's two people talking and a cricket is so loud in the background. I was like, who in the sound design was like, crank that cricket? Crank it! I actually had to replay the dialogue at one point because I was so focused on the cricket, and maybe it was because my speakers are set up wrong. I'm not sure. I have a new home theater system, but there was just this cricket, and I'm putting one in post here for you to see how distracting I found it. And it's like, can you focus on what I'm saying, or are you only hearing the cricket? Now, despite all of the compliments I've given the acting, I do want to say I want to wait a bit more before saying too much more on that, because a lot of the moments in the show so far have been very bombastic and impactful character moments, and the performances are great for that. But for me to absolutely love a performance, an actor needs to be able to embody their character even in the smaller moments, and especially Matt Smith's character hasn't really had smaller moments. He's just always at this 10, which can be great if he's consistently there, but I'm going to wait till the end of the season to really dive in deep in my thoughts of each character. While I've been impressed so far, for me the best performances are about longevity in the role, and so I really want to get to at least the end of this season before I fully give my thoughts there. I've also had characters I thought were amazing performances in the first few episodes or a movie or two, but by the time the actor is in, season 3 or they're on their 4th movie, it just feels like they've fallen into a cliche of what they were, so holding off there. I mean, how much more can I say? The costuming, outstanding. That's one of my dream jobs, is getting into like prop design or costuming, and this show is just, as someone who really likes looking into that stuff, just an absolute delight to watch. The armor itself I found to be so gaudy in the best way possible, because obviously we're following these royals, so Matt Smith has to have this elaborate evil looking armor when he's jousting, and I'm like, it looks great in how over the top and almost corny it is. Like, if I was like a 12-year-old designing the evil Black Knight, that's what I would have designed, but it kind of works for who he is and where he is and what he's doing. And there's going to be people who nitpick that stuff, but when it's better than like 90% of television, a lot of what you're going to be seeing is just nitpicks. And there's going to be people who, I already saw one person saying like, oh, they were so high up on the dragon, they should have been freezing cold. They came down, they weren't cold. They're on a fucking dragon. I don't know what you want at this point. Yeah, it's a fantasy show. Not everything's gonna be perfectly accurate all the time. The dragon's heated. I don't know what you want to hear. I also want to say, I am a huge sucker for the cliche or trope that's being set up here, where there's two family members that are very close, but due to motivations, a schism is happening between them, and just that alone, that little like hook, definitely enough to get me through the end of the season. And the motivations, the ambition within Matt Smith's character versus the betrayal that, I'm really struggling to say her name, Renee, that's such a tantalizing, like, where's she gonna end up? Where are her loyalties after her father screws her over with the marriage? I'm like, oof, I'm here for it. Totally in. Political intrigue, let's go. Gore, gore, gore. I didn't talk about gore enough. Let's get into that real quick, because this is, I don't know if it's more bloody than Game of Thrones or it's just the same amount of blood up front, but especially the birthing and combat stuff, I was getting like Tom Savini level gore vibes at times, and it was impactful and appreciated and deeply disturbing. So far, I like it. a lot. I'm a bit hesitant, hoping it can maintain this momentum. I'm really impressed with how much the show has accomplished in such a brief span of time, but it's far too early to put a number on this bad boy. So I'm just gonna say, if you've been waiting to watch House of the Dragon, absolutely do so. And if you'd like to vote in which manga I'm gonna be doing a detailed review of next, go ahead and check out the link in the pinned comment and the description. Like and subscribe if you have not already, and hit the Patreon if you'd like to support what I do here. I imagine the Song of Ice and Fire fans are extremely happy. And real quickly, no, this is not a dragon tattoo for this show. I had people asking me that. This is Wizard of Earthsea inspired more than anything else, but good timing, I guess. Oh wait, no, this is YouTube. I need drama clicks. This is for House of the Dragon. I'm the biggest A Song of Ice and Fire fan ever, so you should like and subscribe. Bye.